This is the Sabbath School lesson for the second quarter, 2021.
Sunday, May 9. On Eagle's Wings. As a people, Israel had been immersed in Egyptian paganism for many long, hard centuries, an experience that no doubt dimmed their knowledge of God, His will, and His goodness. How could the Lord win them back to Himself? For starters, He would demonstrate the genuineness of His love for Israel, and He did this through His mighty acts of deliverance. He would begin to woo the nation into a loving response to His covenant proposal. At Sinai, God first reminded the nation of His gracious acts in their behalf. Question: what two illustrations describe the manner in which the Lord brought Israel from Egypt to Sinai? And we'll have two sets of verses here for this one. The first is Exodus 19, verse 4. You have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. And we're comparing that with Deuteronomy 32, verses 10 and to 12. He found him in a desert land, and in the wasteland, a howling wilderness. He encircled him, he instructed him, he kept him as the apple of his eye. As an eagle stirs up its nest, hovers over its young, spreading out its wings, taking them up, carrying them on its wings, so the Lord alone led him. And there was no foreign god with him. And then another pair of texts, Deuteronomy 1, 29 to 31. Then I said to you, do not be terrified or afraid of them. The Lord your God who goes before you, He will fight for you according to all He did for you in Egypt before your eyes. And in the wilderness, where you saw how the Lord your God carried you, as a man carries his son, in all the way that you went, until you came to this place. And Hosea chapter 11, verse 1. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. Another question. What would these illustrations teach Israel and us about the nature of God's attitude toward His people? These illustrations indicate that our God is very much aware of our helplessness. Read Psalm 103, verses 13 and 14. As a father pities his children, so the Lord pities those who fear Him. For He knows our frame. He remembers that we are dust. In both the figures of the eagle and the parent carrying his child, we sense God's concern for our well-being. Tender, supportive, protective, encouraging, He desires to bring us to full maturity. Writing in Theology of Narration, page 128, George A.F. Knight says, the eagle was known for its unusual devotions to its young. It too lived on mountain tops. In teaching its young to fly, it carried them upon its back to those great depths that overlooked the plains of Sinai. Then it dropped them down into the depths. If the baby was still too young and too bewildered to fly, Father Eagle would swoop down beneath it, catch it on his back, and then fly him up again with it to the eyrie on the crags above. And that, says the divine voice, is how I brought you out of Egypt to myself. Contrast God's interest in us with our interest for one another. How should His concern for us affect our concern for others? And so to finish today, based on your personal experience, what illustrations can you think of to describe God's unselfish interest in us? Make up a few images of your own from your own experiences. Draw up also from whatever culture you live in. Share them with the class. This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. It's supported by the Sabbath School Department and Hope Channel Australia and is rebroadcast by Christian Record Services and through podcasts at It Is Written in the United States, Hope Channel Germany, and through Apple iTunes and SoundCloud. Remember, God is always faithful.